My name is Emily Darty, and this is my final project for ECI 537. The topic will be on seasons and how they change over time. My vision for this project is that it is a multi-genre unit focusing on the concept of change over time and more specifically how seasons change over time. Learning about seasons helps children understand the passage of time and teaches them about change. This concept of change is part of a larger North Carolina social studies standard that encompasses change over time. So my hope is that this unit will set up other units about change over time. My target audience is kindergarten students, and it will be in a social studies or literacy block. Kiefer and Tyson describe children at this age as curious about their own world and having little sense of time. Books can help children this age begin to understand the sequence of time in their immediate environment. My rationale here is to transform an abstract concept into a concrete understanding through different genres of literature. Students can't touch, taste, or experience all four seasons at one time because they take a year to experience all. So it's hard for them to understand something that's not right in front of them. And so yes, we can talk about the current season, but they won't necessarily understand all of the following seasons as well as they would if they were in it. Kiefer and Tyson describe children, as I mentioned earlier, that they have little sense of time, and essentially they see now, before now, and after now. So I wanted to use, rather than relying on them to remember previous seasons in order for them to grasp the concept of change, I wanted to use literature as a window for students to see and experience all seasons at one time. I chose three genres for my unit: fiction, informational text, and poetry. I pulled the information about each of these out of their chapters in the Kiefer and Tyson text, and I'll give you a brief overview as to my reasoning. First, I chose fiction because children learn through stories, make-believe, and imagination. They enjoy stories that personify animals, and so I chose stories where animals spoke and where trees kind of had a stream of consciousness. And in all of these books, the characters experience all four seasons. Next, I chose informational text, and I chose it because it bases information in the actual world rather than the imagined world. And so they're going to be learning through fiction and the imagination, but I want to bring that into their reality. So to ground their learning here, I chose informational books that had similar concepts and elements to the fiction books that we'll be reading. And then lastly, I chose poetry. And the reason I chose poetry is because I wanted this to be experiential for them. In our text, we learned that children this age are very egocentric, and if it doesn't relate to them, they're not really interested. And so I want them to see how seasons have affected them, or even just recall like what they felt like or what they were thinking during those seasons. And so poetry elicits all five senses through its imagery and its words. And it won't serve to replace the experience, but I want poetry to extend students' sensory experiences of seasons through their memories. And because the senses are the ways in which children experience their world. And so my hope is that poetry will help them recall memories of their life in those seasons, and that will make this very real and applicable to their life. My text set, I won't go into each book, but one book I wanted to highlight is Rainy, Sunny, Blowy, Snowy, and that is right here. And the reason I wanted to highlight that is because that will be kind of the core book that we'll be revisiting every day. It describes what a season is, but it also breaks down each season and gives easy to understand, but also very vivid descriptors of each season. It discusses what the light is like during the day, what is happening in nature, and then also what the weather is like. But a fun piece is that in each season, it kind of shares what kids would do, what they would like to do. And all of these other books kind of touch, they have some sort of association to rainy, sunny, blowy, snowy. This unit will be split into three sections. The first will be what is a season. We'll identify what a season is. We'll look at the broad definition. Then next, we'll dive into each of the four seasons. And in this portion, students will be given a graphic organizer, which I'll discuss in a minute. And then lastly, we'll put it all together and figure out how living things change in each season. And a summary of my lessons, this will be a 12-day unit. The first couple of days will be spent learning what a season is. Next, we'll go into each of the 4 seasons, and at this point, students will be given a graphic organizer, and they will kind of keep a record of what they're learning each day about each season, and it'll be broken down into different categories, and in those categories, my goal is that students will write the descriptors for each season. And that is very important because during days 7 and 9, we will be revisiting each of the individual seasons to tie it together. And that's where I want them to start to see similar threads of either a living organism or a weather pattern over each season and how that one thing has changed over time. And this will all come into a culminating project, which will be a 4 seasons poster. Children will choose one living thing that has changed each season, so they're kind of studying its change as the seasons change. And I'm not going to be looking for perfect art, but I will be looking for accurate details of each season, and those details should be pulled from their graphic organizer. And at the very end, they'll do a class presentation. I won't go into each standard, but there are 4 kind of general standard areas that this unit addresses. First is social studies, which is the seasons. Writing, it'll focus on informational writing and participating in investigation. It touches into reading informational text and literature, and then it also touches into some science. And lastly, my desired outcomes are definitely big understanding because, again, kindergartners are still very much focused on self and how everything kind of comes through the filter of their own brain. And so, but in our Kiefer and Tyson text, we learn that children are naturally curious about the world around them. And so my hope is that this will be a beginning point for them to understand that books can satiate their curiosity about the world. I want them to understand that there are many different types of texts that cover the same topic and that they can pursue genres that interest them, that they like, as well as explore new genres. And lastly, I want them to see that different genres give different perspectives, even though at this point they're not really concerned with other points of view. I hope that this is a building block. Thanks for listening.